he comes, here he comes. There's the trumpets, there's the drums, here he comes. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes.
Johnny Bolton was a subdued boy when Red Connors and I rode him back to Twin Rivers to answer charges of robbery and horse stealing. Mighty serious crimes for a 17-year-old. But we had all the evidence, and young Johnny didn't even try to deny his guilt. In fact, he was almost proud of it, and defiantly boasted that if he'd stolen a faster horse, we never would have caught him. And yet, despite his belligerent attitude, it was hard to feel anything more than pity for this youngster who rode between us. Age was in his favor, and I felt if given another chance, Johnny Bolton might still get started on the track to the right kind of living. As we rode into town, I could tell what the folks were thinking. Their repeated warnings that Johnny Bolton was headed for a life of crime had finally come true. And now they watched smugly as the boy came back to face his medicine. Edgar, the town's newspaper owner, was probably the happiest of all to see us ride in. It was his money and horse that young Johnny had stolen. Maybe Ed was a little disappointed, too, because he'd given Johnny his first chance, taken a homeless boy who'd been nothing but a scrapping troublemaker and provided him with a job and a place to live in back of the newspaper office.
Howdy, Hoppy.
Hi, Ed.
Well, not so important now that the marshal's got you in tow, are you, Johnny? Did he get you in trouble?
None at all.
Did you get all my money back?
Yeah, I got it all. Come on inside. There's your money, Ed.
Thanks, Hoppy. All right, Johnny, now what do you got to say for yourself? Come on, look at me.
I ain't got nothing to say. Now let me alone.
Let you alone. I ought to put you across my knee and paddle your hide. But paddling is for kids. And you're a big man now, a real tough outlaw. And you're going to have to pay the price for being one, Johnny. Throw him in jail, Hoppy.
Ed, why don't you give the boy a chance to explain?
Don't do me any favors, Cassidy. Go ahead, lock me up.
Why did you do it, son?
I took the money, you got it back. It's as simple as that. Looked like easy pickings.
A lot of guys thought that, and they every one wound up with a bullet in their hide.
Not all of them, Red Top.
Well, you whipper.
Take it easy, Red.
May I have a word with you, Marshal Cassidy?
Oh, hello, Reverend Adams. I see you've already heard about Johnny.
Yes. I thought maybe you could use someone on his side.
No point in wasting your gospel on him, Reverend. He's too wild for the good book.
Plato once said, of all wild animals, a boy is the most difficult to manage. Johnny's still a boy, Ed. And if I'm not wrong, a good one.
Yeah, that's what I thought once. And look what happened.
Yeah, and it'll happen again.
Red, let the Reverend have his say.
Thank you, Hoppy. Ed, I'd like to ask you a favor.
All right, go ahead and ask it.
Drop your charges against the boy.
What? Turn this young thief loose to prey on all the rest of the honest folks in Twin Rivers?
I'll be responsible for him, Ed. Besides, he can live with me. Would you like that, son?
Did Plato also say any old port in a storm, preacher?
First thing you're going to have to learn is some manners.
What do you say, Ed?
Well, I guess it'll be all right, but you're sure going to have your hands full.
I think it'll work out all right. All right with you, Marshal?
It's your responsibility.
How about it, son?
Suits me.
Well, I ain't going to give him his job back.
Well, he'll have plenty to do around my place. Come on, Johnny.
Hey!
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
Watch who you're bumping, rich boy.
I didn't mean to do any...
Johnny! Johnny! Please! Stop it!
Let him go, Reverend. If anybody can teach that boy some manners, it's Ralph Higgins. Reverend, wouldn't you hate to be that young again?
Come on, Ralph. Pound him good.
Johnny. Drop him.
Let him fight, Cassidy.
The fight's all over, so mind your own business.
Why, you tin horse. Oh!
You all right, Ralph?
Sure, Mr. Cassidy. Johnny's not half as tough as he makes out.
Why? That's enough, Johnny.
No hard feelings, Johnny.
Say hello to your dad when you see him.
Sure will.
Well, I thought you might get some sense pounded into you, but I guess I was wrong.
The boy's got the devil in him, Hoppy.
There's a little of the devil in all of us, Red. It's just a matter of keeping the old boy in his place. Come on, son.
Red, you go back to bar 20. I'm going to stay here in town, see if I can help the Reverend get Johnny settled.
Yeah, well, that'll take a lot of doing.
It's worth a try.
Hoppy, someday that kid's going to get his hand on a gun. When he does, the devil in him will come out and there'll be nothing that'll save him.
As hard as I tried, I couldn't be too optimistic about the Reverend's plan to help straighten out Johnny Bolton. Red was right. There was something inside of the youngster that kept pushing him to meanness.
We only want to keep you out of trouble, Johnny. Real trouble that'll bring harm to a lot of people.
Look, if I came here for a sermon, I'd just soon be in jail.
Fighting the law never got a man any place.
Oh, yeah? What about the sundown kid? He did okay.
The sundown kid? What do you know about him? That happened 30 years ago.
I read all about him in the back copies of the newspaper when I worked for old man Garver.
And believed every word, I suppose, because it was on the printed page.
Sure, why not? It's right there in black and white. The sundown kid outsmarted them all. He's doing all right now, too, living like a king somewhere.
Newspapers can be wrong.
Not about the sundown kid. I read every word. All about how he gunned down Rock Matson and everything. Nobody ever caught him.
You're wrong, son. A man catches himself the minute he pulls that trigger to kill.
The Reverend's right, Johnny. You can't get away from yourself.
You can talk all you want. The sundown kid got away, and with all the dough a guy could use.
Well, maybe you'll change your mind about a few things being here with the Reverend. I hope so.
Don't count on it, Cassidy.
See you later. Well, Reverend, you cut yourself out quite a chore.
Looks that way, Marshal. But the boy and I will get along fine. Just need a little time to get acquainted.
Well, if anybody can straighten him out, you can. Good luck to you, and keep in touch with me. Maybe I can help.
Thank you, Hoppy.
Johnny's knowledge of the sundown kid had come as quite a surprise. Of course, all the older folk in Twin Rivers remembered the kid. When he was about Johnny's age, he joined up with Matson, a feared gunslinger. But the kid wasn't used to taking orders. He and Matson settled their differences with a gun duel at sundown. Matson was killed, and the kid came out with just an arm scar that he'd carry for life. From then on, every crime in the territory was attributed to the kid's fast gun. Johnny Bolton had gone way back to find an idol to pattern his life after, and I hoped that somewhere along the line we'd find a way to stop him before a bullet did. Red and I were kept pretty busy at the bar 20 for the next few days. Then we decided to ride into town and see how the Reverend and Johnny were getting along.
Oh, come in, gentlemen.
How are you, Reverend?
Fine, thank you.
How's your boy doing?
Oh, he's doing fine. What? Well, he's still a little arrogant, but up until now, he's behaved himself very well indeed.
I'm glad to hear that.
As a matter of fact, I just sent him to the bank to deposit funds for the church building account.
What? You gave that thief money?
Certainly, Red. I thought it very important to show my trust in him.
Well, that's just like giving raw meat to a lion, expecting him not to eat it. You'll never see that money again.
Oh, slow down, Red. Why not just wait and see if he comes back?
Well, I'm sure he will. You know, Red, if I were a betting man, you'd lose your saddle.
Yeah? I hope I'm around to see him walk in with that deposit slip.
How would you gentlemen like a nice glass of cold lemonade?
Oh, that'd be fine.
Hiya, kid.
Hi.
I see the preacher's making a regular little errand boy out of you.
What you see don't bother me none, mister.
Now take it easy. No offense. I'm just surprised. You making his deposits for him, I mean.
You mean this?
Yeah.
Listen, mister, I'm through with this chicken feed. Next time I make a strike, it's gonna be a big one.
You, got anything special in mind?
No, not just yet. But I will have. I'll keep you in mind if I need any help.
Yeah, kid. You do that.
Thank you.
Well, wonders never cease.
What's the matter with the red top? It looks like he was about to lose his teeth.
He was just about to lose his saddle.
A little private joke, Johnny. Everything go all right at the bank?
Oh, yeah, fine. What are you doing, Marshal? Checking up on me?
Call it that if you like. We just dropped by to see how you and the Reverend are getting along.
Oh, all right, I guess. Not much excitement around here, though.
Excitement? Ain't you had excitement enough?
A young man needs something to keep him busy, Red. It is a little dull around here, I must admit.
Hey, wait a minute. I got an idea. Come here. How'd you like to go out to Bar 20 and spend a few days?
Bar 20?
It's a fine idea, Red. What do you say, Johnny?
Makes no difference to me.
Well, let's get out there, then. What are we standing around here for? I cut a saddle pony from the corral and told Johnny if he wanted it, it was his. Johnny wasn't used to being given anything. For the first time, I'd penetrated his shell of toughness. And I felt sure that underneath the shell, there was still a boy of 17 with normal, human 17-year-old emotions. He learned fast, and from what I could tell, he seemed to be enjoying himself. A couple of times, I even caught him smiling, and the smiles were sincere. Little by little, Johnny seemed to loosen up. He was a different person from the sullen, belligerent roughneck Red and I had known just a few days before. Here we go. But he still had his quiet moments. And it was a puzzle trying to figure out just what he was thinking. It was like he was on a borderline, and the slightest action could send him either side of the border. I just hoped when the time came, he'd be on the right side. By the time we rode back to the Reverend's, even Red was more optimistic about Johnny's future. The few days on the ranch seemed to do the boy a world of good, and it looked as if the sundown kid was finally playing second fiddle to common sense.
And my father's agreed to give you 10% of the profits.
That's fine, Ralph. Hello, Hoppy.
Come in, yeah. How are you, Reverend?
Greetings.
Hello, Ralph.
Good to see you, Johnny. Looks like the outdoor life has agreed with you.
We've had a lot of fun together. He's turned into a pretty good rider, too.
Maybe we can go riding together sometime, huh, Johnny?
Yeah, sure.
You in town with your father, Ralph?
No,
Ralph's brought me some good news, Hoppy. It looks as if I'm going to have that church I've dreamed of for so long.
Oh, that is good news.
Ralph's father sold a big herd of cattle, and he's donating 10% of the profits to my church building fund.
Dad's bringing in the money tomorrow, Marshal. Over $15,000.
That's a lot of money to be carrying on a trail.
Yeah, it's another reason Dad sent me in. He thought maybe you'd be kind enough to escort us.
Well, I'd be glad to. Johnny, how about it? You want to come along?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Ralph, when I see your dad, I'll thank him personally. You don't know what this means to me and to Twin Rivers. And maybe when the church is built, Johnny will be my first congregation.
Yeah, maybe so, Reverend. So if you're still interested, Ramsey, this is it. 15,000 split right down the middle.
Sounds like a fair deal, kid.
But what are you afraid of?
Nothing. I was just thinking, Cassidy's gonna be riding with him.
Don't you worry none about Cassidy. I'll take care of him.
It's a deal, kid.
I thought it would be. Now, you be there tomorrow. The right place, the right time. Because I don't want any slip-ups.
Sure, kid. Sure.
Gonna run away.
Drop that gun. Quick! You, hand me the money.
What money? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about $15,000. Now hand it over.
Johnny?
Snake, Hoppy. Hooked my horse. Couldn't stop him.
You all right?
Yeah, I guess so. Kind of shaken up. I think I'll ride on into town.
All right, but take it easy. I better get back to the Higgins. They're carrying a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Higgins were carrying a lot of money. But by the time I got back to the buckboard, the masked bandit had ridden off with every cent. It all seemed too pat. I figured Johnny was too good a rider to have a spooked horse run away with him. And when Red told me the bandit knew exactly how much money the Higgins were carrying, I had to agree that somewhere behind the robbery was the influence of the Sundown Kid. Telling the Higgins to meet us in town, Red and I rode out fast on the trail of Johnny Bolton. We tracked Johnny right back to Twin Rivers and spotted his horse in front of Carney's livery stable. Red recognized the other pony as the one used by the masked bandit, and our suspicions turned to harsh reality. When we heard what had happened, even the Reverend had to agree that the devil's idol within Johnny was stronger than any of us had imagined. The youngster was doing his best to be another Sundown Kid. Come on, we better get over there.
There you are, kid. $2,000.
What do you mean, 2,000? I said we'd split right down the middle.
You'll take that or nothing, kid.
Maybe you're forgetting I can put the finger on you.
I'm not forgetting a thing. If I go to jail, you go right along with me. Thought you said Cassidy wouldn't catch on.
I didn't think you would.
Well, he tagged you right back to the barn. I knew I should never come back to town.
What are we gonna do?
Shoot our way out.
Red, keep me covered.
Come on, kid. We're getting out of here.
Good work, Hoppy.
All right, Red, take him to jail.
All right, come on, get up, you. Right now, get up.
Hoppy, I think it's about time we kicked the props out from under the Sundown Kid.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Hold up. Come any further and I'll shoot. Throw me that satchel of money.
Don't be a fool, Johnny. You'll never get away.
The Sundown Kid got away.
You're wrong, Johnny. The Sundown Kid didn't get away.
What are you talking about? I can read. I read all them stories in the newspaper.
Not the complete story. Sundown did kill Rock Matson in a gun duel, but it was self-defense. Later, he turned himself over to the law and was cleared of all charges. But the kid could never clear himself of the fact that he'd killed a man. He disappeared from the territory, but his reputation grew. From then on, every crime that was committed in the Southwest was falsely attributed to him. There's only one other man in Twin Rivers that knows the true story of the Sundown Kid.
He entered the ministry and came back to Twin Rivers many years later as the Reverend Edward Adams. Yes, Johnny, I was the Sundown Kid. And I've carried this scar on my arm for over 30 years to remind me every day of how wrong I was to kill, regardless of the circumstances.
Johnny, it's not what a man is or was. It's what he can be that's important.
I hope the rest of the town feels that way about it, Hoppy.
I'm sure they will, Reverend. About everything. Come on, son. Hi there, little partners. I think you know your mommy is the nicest and the most beautiful woman in the world, and that she loves you very dearly. So when she asks you to do anything, don't fuss about it. Just do it. For instance, when she asks you to have a glass of milk, drink it. And then surprise her by asking for another one. You try that and see how much better you both feel. Now, until next week, so long. And in the meantime, watch yourself at the crosswalks, will you?
There he goes on his way down the moonlit trail to where cowboys race. Hopalong Cassidy, Hopalong Cassidy, he'll return soon again. There's no use say goodbye until then. Hopalong, here he comes, here he comes. There's the trumpets, there's the drums, here he comes. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes.
I was returning to the bar 20 with my pal Red Connors. We'd been gone longer than I expected, so ran completely out of food. As usual, Red was hungry and complaining. Rather than make him wait until we'd get home at dark, I decided to swing past Clarksville, a ghost town. Titus Clark, owner of the town and an old friend of mine, was its sole survivor. A bad epidemic had hit some years before, and everyone either died or had left. Red said he didn't care how many people lived there as long as there was some food.
Well, looks like the weeds have taken over the town.
Yeah, it sure does. Gophers starved to death here.
I don't know. It looks like the gophers have done pretty well. Come on, let's find Titus. What are you so jumpy about? This is a nice, peaceful place.
Where's the food?
In here. Come on.
Yeah, nice, peaceful place. You sure this guy's a good friend of yours?
I've always thought so. There's something funny about this. Let's go take a look. Take it easy, then. Find anything?
Not a thing.
Come on.
Hoppy,
Yeah?
I think I'm losing my appetite.
No. That's too bad. Come. This is Titus's room. Titus? Titus?
Titus?
Yeah.
That lead went all the way through him.
Yeah, that poor guy.
Well, he was a sole survivor.
I'm not so sure. Remember the greeting we got out there?
Yeah. Say, maybe...
You might as well take care of the horses.
Go ahead.
That's what killed him. It's a bullet from a .30-30 Winchester.
Say, Hoppy, don't you think we ought to turn this over to a sheriff?
Yeah, I guess we should. You better ride over to the railhead. It's about 10 miles east of here. Sheriff's name is Gordon.
All right. I can get myself some food.
Wait a minute. You notice anything here?
Yeah, food.
Not the food. The way the table's set up.
Oh.
Titus has had a guest, and not too long ago, from the looks of this.
Hey, 2 plates.
Yeah.
Hey, Titus, I got your supplies in mail. Hey, you kind of scared me. I'm Fred Loomis. I ain't used to seeing anybody around here except old Titus.
Hi, Mr. Loomis. My name's Cassidy. This is Red Connors.
Howdy. You friends of Mr. Clark's?
Well, yeah. How often do you deliver supplies around here?
About every 4 weeks. He gives me a list of supplies he needs at the railhead, and I fetch him in for him. His mail, too.
Titus is dead.
No. Heart finally got him, huh?
Not his heart, Mr. Loomis. This.
In the back.
Well, who would want to do a thing like
That's
that?
what we're gonna find out.
You find him like this?
Yeah, except that he was on his face. I dug this out of the wall over there. It's a bullet from a .30-30 Winchester.
Poor old coot didn't have any money. I know he didn't have any enemies. Nobody disliked him enough to kill him.
You're right about that. But somebody liked him well enough to eat with him.
By golly, you're right.
You any idea who his guest could have been?
I didn't think nobody ever ate with him except me. How long ago you reckon it happened?
Oh, 2, maybe 3 hours ago.
See anybody when you rode in?
No, but just as we were coming...
Not a soul.
Beats me. Somebody ought to get Sheriff Gordon and Titus' niece. I'd do it for you, only I just came from the railhead, and I'm going in the other direction. I gotta finish making my deliveries.
That's all right. Thanks just the same. Red was just going for the sheriff when you drove up.
Yeah, I'd better get started. Well, I'm glad I met you, Mr. Loomis. I'll see you later, Hoppy.
Right.
Well, I'll be going along, too. I'll leave the victuals, but I guess I ought to take his mail back to the post office.
Oh, I'll give this to the sheriff.
Suits me, Mr. Cassidy. She's the only one ever wrote to him.
She?
Yeah, that lawyer niece of his.
Oh, I see. By the way, what's the big X on you?
Oh, that's a special code of mine. I put 2 X's on Mr. Smith's and 1 X on Titus. And it makes it easy to load and unload the wagon. I don't have to fumble around looking for names.
I see. Well, I guess you want to get going.
Well, I'll be glad to stick around if you need me.
Oh, no, that's all right. You go right ahead.
Well, I'll see you on my way back tomorrow.
Fine.
The sheriff will be interested in anybody with a 30-30. I got one.
Yeah, I saw it on your wagon seat.
Yeah, well, so long.
So long. I didn't get much sleep that night, and the following morning I went out to look around. Examination of papers and letters in Titus's desk made me pretty sure of a motive for the murder. I was anxious to see how Carol Madden would take the news of her uncle's death. A woman lawyer, first one I'd heard of in our part of the country. I remembered Titus speaking of the girl, and as I recall, there wasn't much love lost between them.
Drop that rifle.
I was glad to see my old friend, Sheriff Gordon. He introduced me to the other two. The girl was Carol Madden, Titus's niece. She seemed visibly affected by the news of her uncle's murder and offered to do anything she could to capture the guilty party. Dick Madden was her husband. They had been married a year. Dick, an arrogant Easterner, wasn't the kind of fellow you'd cotton to quickly. I didn't think he cared whether his wife's uncle had been murdered or lived to be 100. I told him they'd better come over to the hotel. Neither Dick or Carol wanted to see the body, so I told them to make themselves as comfortable as possible in the lobby. I took the sheriff into Titus's room to bring him up to date on events and ask him some questions about the dead man's affairs. Later, we came back to the street. The sheriff and I had exchanged views on the case. He couldn't help me much as to the identity of the mysterious ambusher, but we had a definite motive for the killing.
Well, I guess the next thing is to have a talk with Carol.
Yeah, she must know what's been going on.
Why, sure. Her being a lawyer and that airy husband of hers being a civil engineer had a perfect setup.
Got it all figured out, huh, Red?
Why, it's as plain as day to a half-wit jackrabbit that Mr. Madden had a 30-30 Winchester. Didn't you see it on his horse? Get up! Where you shooting? Come on.
Bloodstains there. I must have nicked him.
Well, that's better. Maybe it'll be easier to find him.
We'll have another look around.
We've searched every one of these buildings with a fine-tooth comb. We couldn't find him. He's sure got a good hiding place.
Maybe he digs a hole and pulls it in after him.
Well, we got some boot prints here. Maybe we can follow them. Should be some more bloodstains, too.
Who's doing the shooting?
I wish we knew.
Hold it, Red. You two go back to the hotel. We can handle this. Once more, we searched the town carefully. We found lots of boot prints, but they led us nowhere. And no more bloodstains.
Yes, Titus started a couple of wells, but he could never go deep enough to get any real water.
I fail to see what this town's water supply has to do with murder.
I feel sure that it has a great deal to do with it.
Well, my uncle had the water hauled in. But like my husband said, what's that got to do with the case?
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. But we'll get on with some other things. You were pretty sure that this property was going to be worth something, weren't you?
What do you mean?
Mrs. Madden, you were your uncle's attorney. You were handling the negotiations for the railroad company to buy this town.
That's right. My wife knew that. She was waiting for the railroad to agree to Clark's terms.
The freighter brought this letter in yesterday. In it, the railroad agreed to your uncle's terms. He was to retain certain properties along the railroad right-of-way, which would be worth a great deal of money. They agreed to dig several deep wells for water.
You've just eliminated us as suspects.
Yes. We didn't know the railroad had accepted the terms. This letter came direct to Clark.
Well, that's true. But they also sent a copy of that letter to your wife's office.
That's strange. I hadn't received it up until the time I left.
Now, look here, Cassidy. This has gone far enough. I resent your suspicions.
You're getting a little ahead of yourself.
Am I? You've got it all figured out. I work for the railroad company. My wife represented her uncle. Naturally, I knew that the railroad planned to extend their main line. I own a .30-30 Winchester rifle. When you investigate further, you'll find that I suggested the purchase of this property to the railroad officials. So, I came quietly to Clarksville and murdered my wife's uncle. You can say that, Cassidy, but try to prove it. I have a perfect alibi for my time. Besides, how could I or my wife benefit by her uncle's death?
How? Mrs. Madden, you're your uncle's only beneficiary, and you drew this will for him.
Carol, you didn't mention this to me.
No, Dick. As far as I was concerned, this was just a worthless old town. Possibly good for firewood. I really didn't expect the railroad company to meet my uncle's terms.
Hoppy.
Yeah?
Well, what about that other matter? The one you haven't mentioned.
Oh, that's right. Thanks, Sheriff. Have either of you heard Titus mention the rediscovery of the gold vein?
The gold vein?
That's right.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Oh, I don't know. The sheriff says he's mentioned it several times lately.
I won't stand for any more questioning. If we're accused of murder, I demand that a formal charge be placed against us immediately.
You're not going to be charged with anything for the time being. Now, may I suggest that you both help with the burial? While the others went to bury Titus, I was determined to ferret out the hiding place of our mysterious friend, who seemed to possess the cunning of a pack rat. My search was interrupted by the return of the freighter. Loomis said he'd hurried back in case there was anything he could do. His left arm was bandaged. In answer to my question, he said he'd torn his arm on a nail when he was unloading. He wanted to attend the burying of Titus and walked off to join the others. I retraced my steps to the hotel. I had to find the water supply. This was an old shed apparently built as an afterthought. None of the barrels contained water, but I knew there was some near me. The place was cold and damp. Then I remembered an old trick of the Mexican people. I moved some boards on the floor and found what I had been searching for. Titus had dug a hole in the ground and sunk his water barrel in it. This kept the water cool and fresh. As I replaced the boards, I noticed something on the ground, blood stains. I knew I'd found the place where I'd meet our ambusher. My patience was rewarded. Some time later, an old man carrying a .30-30 Winchester entered. I let him get to the water before I spoke. So there you are. Go ahead, get your drink of water.
I want it for my arm. Will you nick me? You want a recussion?
Well, go on, get your water, then we'll see about fixing that arm while we talk.
I ain't got nothing to say.
Suppose we put it this way. I have something I want to say to you. Now get your water.
Oh.
Hurry it up. That's enough. Come on. Sit down there now. Although he was suffering, the old fella didn't want me to touch his arm. His name was John Henderson. He was just a little tetched. Not much background to him. He'd lived in Clarksville when it was a boom town. From time to time, he came back to visit Titus, an old friend. Henderson thought he could find the gold vein again, and Titus had promised him half of it. He'd been sleeping in a cellar under the general store. That's why we couldn't find him. He denied killing Titus and said he didn't have any idea who could have done it. Neither did he hear the shot that ended his friend's life. He admitted that he'd eaten with Titus, and that was the last time he had seen him alive. Later, he'd found the dead body, then saw us riding in. He knew about Loomis coming through, but Loomis didn't know he was living in the town. When I asked him why he was taking pot shots at us, he said he didn't know but what we'd killed his friend. Besides, he didn't want any strangers around when the gold boom struck again. I assured him I was not interested in his dream of wealth. Cautious questioning revealed he didn't know anything about the railroad deal. I started outside to turn him over to the sheriff. Sheriff, here's our ambusher.
John Henderson. Well, if you're not a sight for my sore eyes, what reason would you have for killing Titus?
He says he didn't do it.
By golly, he could have at that.
Stop lying. You didn't even know I was in town.
Oh, I knew you was holed up here all along, Henderson.
Well, you dirty
Wait a minute.
Well, we may as well get back home. There's not much more we can do.
Yeah, I guess you might as well. Well, I suppose you'll go ahead with the railroad deal now that you own this town.
Yes.
What's this about Miss Carol owning the town?
Well, her uncle left her everything in his will.
That ain't right.
Why not?
I'm supposed to get the town if anything happened to Titus.
Oh, but that's not what it says in the will.
No? Well, read this. It's in Titus' own handwriting, and it's all legal. He gave it to me to protect my interests. He must have known something was going to happen to him. He owed me a lot of money, and he said when the railroad came through, he'd pay me well. It says so right there.
Well, this is Titus's handwriting, all right. And you're also right in assuming that he was afraid something was going to happen to him.
That paper isn't legal.
Yeah? Well, wait till I get to the railhead and I'll hire myself a real lawyer.
You're going to need one, Mr. Loomis.
What are you talking about?
It's too bad you never learned how to read.
Who says I can't read?
Well, if you could, you'd have never given me this. Listen to what it says. To whom it may concern, Fred Loomis plans to kill me. He knows about the railroad wanting to buy my property and has tried to force me to give him a bill of sale. I have not told him about my will in order to protect my niece, Carol Madden. Signed, Titus Clark. Well, Loomis?
You're lying.
Loomis, I knew you couldn't read yesterday when you gave me that envelope and said it was from Titus's niece. It was actually from the railroad.
You're talking through your hat, mister.
When the postmaster gives you letters, he tells you who they're for, and you put your own marks of identification on them.
You're just guessing.
No, Loomis. I went out on the road. I found out where you'd pulled your wagon off to one side. You got out and walked back into town. You shot Titus without Henderson even knowing you were here. Then you went back to the wagon. Then you drove back into town like nothing had happened. So, we're taking you in for murder.
Oh, no, you ain't. Drop those guns. Give me that paper, Cassidy. Hand it over.
Why, Hoppy, this don't say nothing about Loomis threatening Titus.
It doesn't? Well, maybe I'd better learn how to read.
Oh, here it says, to whom it may concern, I owe Fred Loomis $9.63 for supplies. Leastwise, he claims I do. Should anything happen to me before I pay him, I want my heir, Carol Madden, to give him the $9.63 out of the money I leave her. Thank you, and it's signed Titus Clark right there.
Sure it is. And the word is heir, not hair.
Get in.
Well, Red, when you come back through Clarksville, we'll have a restaurant open.
No, thanks, ma'am. I don't think I'll be back. I know the food's good out at the Bar 20.
Well, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, sir. Goodbye. So long, old timer. Hi there. Friends, this is the first time in the 5 years since you've been kind enough to invite me into your homes on television that I've taken the liberty of speaking to you personally. I would just like to assure you that any product you see Hoppy's name on, in my mind, is the finest. Now, here's a little message for my little friends. Always mind your daddy and your mummy. Please remember, they're the best friends you have in the world. Till next week, take good care of yourselves.
There he goes on his way down the moonlit trail to where cowboys race. Hopalong Cassidy, Hopalong Cassidy, he'll return soon again. There's no use to say goodbye until then. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes, here he comes. There's the trumpets, there's the drums, here he comes. Hopalong Cassidy, here he
I received an urgent letter from my old friend, Sheriff Jeff Barton, over in Stone Valley. He wrote that he was having a little trouble and asked me to drop by if I could spare the time. Now, Sheriff Jeff has been a law officer the best part of his life and is a fearless man. So when he said he was having a little trouble, it meant something serious. My saddle pal, Red Connors, was eager to go along because just the mention of trouble and the chance of getting mixed up in it was like a tonic for him. At the top of the hill, we looked down on Stone Valley. At the far end, to the south, was the town, our destination. Jeff Barton.
He's hurt bad.
His ranch is only a short ways from here. Let's get him home and get a doctor for him. How is he, Doctor?
Why, I can't tell the extent of his injuries till I make a more thorough examination. There may be serious complications.
Could I talk to him for a minute?
Why, since he knows you, Mr. Cassidy, and you're a friend of his, why, it might lift his spirit if he knows you're around.
Thank you.
But only for a minute.
Thanks, Doctor.
Goodbye, Mr. Roberts.
Goodbye, Doc. Thanks again. Say, did you see the men who tried to kill our sheriff?
Well, Hoppy and me didn't get close enough to get a good look at him. As soon as the buckboard wrecked, they cleared out fast.
It's an outrage.
Well, I ain't been keeping score about what's been going on here in Stone Valley, but you can say that again, Mr.
Roberts. Stephen Roberts. Like my friends here, I own a ranch.
Yeah, I'm glad to know you, Mr. Roberts. Connor's my name. Most everybody calls me Red.
Mm-hmm. Friend of Cassidy's?
Yeah, Hoppy and me's been knocking around together for years.
We ranchers are desperate. I don't know what we'll do with our sheriff laid up.
Hoppy's a good friend of the sheriff. He'd be glad to help you.
We sure need all the help we can get. So long.
So long.
As the doc said, my old friend Sheriff Barton was glad that Red and I had arrived. He told me as much as he could about the trouble in Stone Valley, but I didn't let him talk too long. Doctor's orders. I learned that Stone Valley was being run by a group who called themselves the Ranchers Cooperative Association. For a year, this association had been friendly and given the ranchers credit for the supplies they needed. The bills were to be paid when the crops and the cattle were sold. Recently, the ranchers had found out that their bills had been padded with interest and unfair prices. When they couldn't pay, the association threatened foreclosure and refused more credit. Attempts to haul in supplies were stopped by mysterious raiders, and some of the ranchers had been killed. The sheriff himself had been the latest victim. Just before he lapsed into unconsciousness, he told me that a man named Morgan was the head of the association. I decided to pay him a visit. I left Sheriff Barton in the care of some neighbors while Red and I rode into town to call on Morgan. I had told Red what the sheriff had said, and as usual, he perked up and his eyes were gleaming at the prospect of a fight. But that was one thing I planned to avoid if possible. The Ranchers Cooperative Association cannot extend any more credit for supplies to ranchers who have not paid their current bills.
It smells like a politician's promise to me.
Red, when we get inside, let me do the talking, huh?
I won't say anything. You know me, Hoppy.
Yeah, I do know you. That's why I'm telling you. Hi, Robert.
If you men are going to see Morgan, you're wasting your time. I just saw him and demanded that the association get more credit for the ranchers. He not only refused, but ordered me out.
Well, maybe we'll have better luck.
This is no joking matter, Cassidy. If we don't get supplies soon, we'll be starved out. I wouldn't be surprised if the men raiding our wagons are hired by Morgan.
This Morgan sounds like a low-down, white-livered skunk.
Let's go in and find out for ourselves. You Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I'm Morgan.
My name's Cassidy. That's Red Connors.
How do you do? Well, what can I do for you?
I'm a friend of Sheriff Barton's.
Oh, well, I'm sorry about the sheriff's accident. He was a good man.
He's still a good man.
I think I know why you men are here. The ranchers have told you that the association was unfair to them because he wouldn't give them any more credit.
Well, that seems to be the general opinion.
I don't have to explain anything to you, Cassidy. The association's none of your affair.
I haven't said that it was, have I?
Well, you seem to be an intelligent man. Sit down, I'll explain our position to you. Maybe you can make these thick-skulled ranchers understand.
Well, it might help clear things up.
The association is a business organization. A year ago, we tried to help the ranchers by extending liberal credit to them for their supplies. Now, when they won't pay, we find ourselves with thousands of dollars on the books. Look at those shelves. With our capital gone, we were unable to restock. And now the ranchers, they demand more credit and more supplies.
I see what you mean.
You've probably also heard that we're going to start foreclosure proceedings against the ranchers.
Yeah, we did hear that.
We're in business to make money, not to lose it. Naturally, we'll use legal means to get back what they owe us.
Well, what you say certainly makes sense.
I knew you'd understand.
You any idea who the varmints are that've been raiding the ranchers' wagons?
I'd like to get my hands on them. They raided 2 of ours.
Well, they made a mistake when they picked on Sheriff Barton. Murder is bad business.
Murder? Well, I thought you said the sheriff would recover.
I don't remember saying anything about the sheriff's health. Come on, Red. See you later. Morgan was a cagey character, but I began to suspect that he knew far more about the raiders than he said. His reply to my hint that the sheriff had been murdered was proof that someone had informed him of Barton's condition. And the informer had to be someone who was at the house this morning.
I can't figure what you got up your sleeve, but I know you got something.
Not a thing.
Cassidy!
It's Roberts and the ranchers. You want to see him?
Sure. Why not?
Did Morgan agree to give you more supplies for us ranchers?
Now, see here, Robert. Hoppy never said he'd get any supplies for you. You were inside the store and saw the empty shelves.
That doesn't mean a thing. They've got plenty of supplies stacked away somewhere.
Yeah, you seem pretty sure of that.
Well, it's obvious they're not being starved out.
And I suppose you advised the ranchers to turn over their land to the association?
Well, they're going to foreclose. What else can we do?
Did you ever think of fighting for your rights?
Hey, that's an idea, Hoppy. There's freight hauling outfits at the county seat that'll get supplies in here.
That has possibilities.
Yeah, and another thing. We can start our own store. We'll fight this association bunch at their own game.
Oh, but that's dangerous.
What's so darn dangerous about it?
Well, it might start a fight. We've had enough bloodshed in the valley.
Oh, I don't know. A good fight out in the open kind of clears the air.
Yeah, just let them skunks that have been raiding your wagon show their faces.
Look here, Cassidy. We didn't ask for your help. Who gave you authority to butt into our affairs? I still say this store idea is foolish and dangerous. I think my friends here will agree with me. Yeah. Killing people may be all right for you, but we want no part of it.
Why that low...
Hey, Red. You wait here.
But Hoppy,
I said wait here. I didn't know why Red's suggestion about the store had made this fellow Robert so angry. But there was a reason for it, which I intended to find out. At the moment, it was important to play possum until I had proof of what I suspected. Robert, Red and I have no intentions of starting any gunplay. My only interest here is to get the men who attacked the sheriff. I'm going out to see him. He's promised to tell me who and what is behind the association's attempt to freeze out the ranchers.
Well, that's good news, Cassidy. Why didn't Sheriff Barton tell us ranchers?
Well, he probably hadn't finished his investigation yet.
I certainly hope you can find some way to help us out. We can't hold out much longer. I was against Red's store idea, but I hope I'm wrong. I own that vacant store across the street. Here's the key. Use it.
Well, thank you very much.
Hey, when Ed Roberts left here, he was about ready to cut off my ear. You go over there and get him to eating out of your hand. How do you do it?
Nothing to it. Hey, we're in business.
Don't tell me he gave you the whole store.
Sure, he decided to give your idea a try.
Well, I'm not so sure that'll work, Hoppy.
Well, of course it'll work. Haven't you always said you'd like to settle down and have a business of your own?
Yeah, but...
Now's your big chance.
But where are we going to get the supplies?
Didn't you say you knew a freight hauling outfit at the county seat?
Did I say that?
You said that and a lot of other things. Now, I'm going out to see Sheriff Barton. You stay here and get things fixed up. And keep out of trouble. There's your key.
Yeah, but
Go
Hoppy,
on.
but Hoppy, I can't.
Are they gone?
Yes.
I want some of our men to follow him out to Sheriff Barton's ranch. This time we got to get them both.
He gave me the idea that Barton had been murdered.
You were a fool to fall for that. I told you the sheriff was still alive when I left his ranch.
You told me the men would get him, too.
Well, I couldn't know that Cassidy would be riding out in the valley at that particular time.
Well, we shouldn't have raided the sheriff's wagon. If you'd have listened to me...
I give the orders. Where are the men?
In the stable. I keep them out of sight.
I'll tell them to get started. We haven't got any time to lose. Leave?
Yeah, I told him to riddle the sheriff's room and make sure that Cassidy got his.
Good. Dexter and Lawson still around?
Yeah, they only sent 4 men.
Well, we've got a little job right here in town that needs taking care of. Take Dexter and Lawson and see if you can find some way to discourage our friend across the street.
Oh, that'll be a pleasure.
Meantime, I'll ride out to the sheriff's and put on a big act about these outrageous killings.
The doc gave me permission to talk with the sheriff again, but it wasn't much use. He was suffering from a severe concussion and only came to now and then. Once in a while, he'd open his eyes and smile a little, and I knew he recognized me. I was glad that he at least knew I was on the job.
There's a couple of big bozos there in town.
As soon as he dismounted, Red told me what had happened to him in Stone Valley. He was hopping mad and wanted my permission to return and shoot it out with his tormentors. I couldn't blame him, but we had more important things to consider. I told him about the raiders and their killing Sheriff Barton. Just then we heard hoofbeats.
I was down the road. I heard shots coming from this direction. And I saw 4 men riding away.
Well, we did have some visitors. Did you get a look at any of them?
I wasn't close enough. They killed the sheriff, didn't they?
They tried to kill him. I'm going after those men. I'd like you to go with me.
Oh, of course. I'll go with you.
See here, Hoppy. You just told me...
I told you to stay here and guard the sheriff. Can't you get that through that big, thick skull of yours? I'll go in and tell him you're going to be here to take care of him.
Robert's words were a tip-off, and I began putting 2 and 2 together. How did he know that the sheriff was the target of the men riding away? And why was he sure the sheriff had been killed? But I knew my suspicion was no good without proof.
Red, come here. Did you see the sheriff?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I just got here. Here comes Hoppy.
Well, don't stand there like an idiot. Get in the house. Come on, Roberts.
I'm darned if I understand, Hoppy. First he tells me the sheriff's dead, and then he...
Sheriff. Get the ranchers and ride to Robert's ranch. Hurry, Hoppy.
You're going the wrong way. See those tracks?
Your ranch is down this way, isn't it?
Yeah?
That's where we're heading.
What's the meaning of this?
We'll talk about that when we get there. Get going.
Well, you must be out of your mind. If you're not going to try to capture those killers, I will.
Robert! I said we were heading for your ranch. Now get going.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Sit down. Well, the association's been good to you. No danger of you being starved out.
Those are mine. I can prove it. I bought those supplies when the association first started to give trouble to the ranchers.
You'll have plenty of time for alibis later. Well, this letter from the government is very interesting.
I can explain that.
You should have explained to your friends, the ranchers, that the government was buying up land in Stone Valley for a cavalry post. You and I are taking a ride to the county seat. I got all the evidence I need.
You won't get away with this, Cassidy. My men will be here soon.
You mean your hired killers? That's fine. I got a score to settle with them, too.
All right, Cassidy. Now's your chance.
Get rid of them.
In here, man. Cassidy!
Just in time. Drag him out of here. Hey, wait a minute. Gentlemen, the government wants land here in Stone Valley to build a cavalry post. And they're not grabbing your ranches. Anyone who wants to sell can sell. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Well, Red, you got a nice store here. You're going to make a great storekeeper. Good luck to you. So long and good luck.
Here you are, partner. The darn store is yours.
Hoppy, wait! I'm coming!
Change your mind, huh? Come on. Hi there. Did you hear what the man said? I did, and I agree with every word of it.
If you buy his product, I'm sure you'll like it, and it'll tickle my sponsor to death. Now, a thought for my little partners. Be happy and proud that you're an American. Remember, there are millions of little boys and girls all over the world that'd give anything for that privilege. Until next week, so long and good luck to you.
On his way down the moonlit trail to where cowboys stray. Hopalong Cassidy, Hopalong Cassidy, he'll return soon again. There's no use to say goodbye until then. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes, here he comes. There's the trumpets, there's the drums, here he comes. Hopalong Cassidy, here he comes.
This is Arizona, over 100,000 square miles of mountains, desert, and plains. Raising cattle is the big business. Right now, it's in pretty bad shape. A drought started early in the year. Streams and water holes have dried up. That's why Red Connors and I are here. Herb Doherty, an old friend of ours who went into the banking business after he made a rich gold strike, had sent for us. He's in Little Rock Basin, the cattle-raising center of Arizona.
Hi, Buckley. Still no break in the weather, Walton. 2 more weeks of this drought and Little Rock Basin will bust wide open.
There's no use worrying about it.
Maybe not. But if the cattle business goes under, that'll mean the end of the Cattlemen's Association.
That's right, Steve.
Seeing you'll be out of a job with the rest of us, you're taking this mighty casual.
Look, we'll all have better jobs if what I'm figuring on works.
What do you mean?
Well, you know Doherty's been shelling out money hand over fist since before enduring this drought.
Well, everybody in town knows that.
Well, the normal rainy season's just about over, right?
Right.
If the elements don't fool us, he'll have to go on carrying these cattlemen till late in the fall.
It'll take more money than he has to do that.
Exactly. In 30 days' time, he'd be flat broke. The bank's assets will be sold at auction, and I'll bid him in on a dime on the dollar. I control all the cattle and grazing land in the basin.
All right, suppose it works that way. How do we feed and water the stock?
Well, we'll do what the cattlemen can't afford to. We'll sell the stock for whatever we can get. If it's only $10 a head, we'll make plenty.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And it won't be long before this drought's forgotten. New herds will be brought in. Remember that the grazing fees won't be anything to be sneezed at.
The day we rode into Little Rock, the weather was hot and dry. There still hadn't been any rain. The lack of drinking water for the animals brought home to us that the situation must be more serious than we'd thought. As we passed the cashier, we heard him telling the 2 men at his window that Doherty had instructed him to put $5,000 more into each of their accounts.
And as I told you before, I'm not forgetting that you cattlemen grub-stake me time and time again. So as long as I have the money, you're all welcome to it, Gale. See the cashier, he'll fix you up.
Isn't this turning out to be more than you bargained for, Doherty?
Not at all. I have faith in Little Rock Basin, and I have faith in you cattlemen. I'll go along with you to my last dollar. Now get out, I'm busy.
Thanks.
Didn't you hear me say that I was...
Hoppy.
How are you?
Red,
How are you?
well, you got here fast.
We didn't waste any time when we got word you wanted to see us.
Yeah, this newfangled telegraph's a great thing.
It sure is. Well, sit down, both of you.
Thanks. Well, you seem to be doing pretty well here. What's your problem?
Well, I don't know just how to explain the situation I'm in.
Well, suppose we start at the beginning, huh?
Well, after I made my strike, I wanted to do something for those that helped me during the lean years.
Yeah?
Well, opening a bank seemed the best way. The cattle industry was growing. The cattlemen needed money to increase their herds and land holdings. I let them have it.
Oh, that's wonderful you feel that way about the cattlemen. But what do you know about running a bank?
Oh, shucks, there's nothing to it. You just lend money and take notes and mortgages. I have a stack of them that high.
But the banking business isn't that simple. You have to know the value of land and cattle in order to protect yourself and your depositors.
I've been trying to convince Daddy of that for a long time.
Daddy, how are you?
Fancy pretty as ever.
Hello, Reggie. It's good to see you, too.
I have an idea you were responsible for that telegram we got.
You're right. I'm worried terribly.
Now, Pat.
Please, Daddy, let me talk about it. From the little I overheard, I know Dad hasn't told you what's wrong. So I will. It won't take me long.
In a few minutes, Pat explained how things stood. Her father and the bank were land poor. They practically owned Little Rock Basin. Doherty had been generous to a fault. Now he would have to continue advancing money or lose what he had already invested. I asked Doherty if he had tried to raise money on those mortgages and notes. He told me out-of-town banks wouldn't lend a dime on grazing land in normal times. There was no use trying during the drought. Of course, as a last resort, the cattle could be sold, but the buyers were aware of the conditions in Little Rock Basin and wouldn't hesitate to take advantage of it. So that was ruled out. Doherty was plainly discouraged. He'd been letting his friends down, and that to him was a crime. Suddenly, I had a thought. I put it up to them. Why couldn't we drive the cattle to where feed and water was plentiful? It wouldn't be easy. It'd be a long, hard drive, but it could be done.
That's the answer, Hoppy.
Where will you take the cattle?
To the Twin Rivers Range. We got plenty of feed and water there.
How about the cattlemen? Will they agree to have their herds moved that far?
Well, I don't think they have much choice if they want to save them, but we're going to have to move fast.
Leave that to me. The roundup will start as soon as I spread the word around. You'll trail boss the outfit, Hoppy.
Thank you, Herb. So long, Patty.
Bye, Hoppy.
Bye, Pat.
Bye, Red.
The cattlemen, without exception, were in favor of the plan. They set their crews to work rounding up the herds. In search of food and water, the cattle had roamed far and wide. One of you men Frank Walton?
Yeah, I am.
My name's Cassidy. I'm a friend of Herb Doherty.
Well, he told me he's expecting you. This is Steve Buckley.
How are you? Glad to know you. I'd have dropped in sooner, but I've been helping round up the cattle over in Little Rock Basin. They were scattered all over the country. Doherty thought maybe your men could help give us a hand.
Well, sure. Be glad to send them over.
That's fine. Have them report to Charlie Gale over in the East Range. As soon as you can.
But why are you moving the stock now?
We're going to graze the herd at Twin Rivers. There's plenty of feed and water there.
Good idea.
We thought so. Thanks again.
We're going to let the cattlemen get away with that? Uh-uh. We're just going to let them think they are.
It took 2 weeks of hard work to round up the cattle and get the drive underway. We figured it was better not to push the cattle, just let them amble along. They had a hard trip ahead of them.
Well, they don't seem to have very many men for the job. Yeah, they're short-handed, all right. It's the break we need.
It's rough country the other side of the pass through the mountains.
Yeah, that's the spot I picked. The men will meet me there later.
Well, while you're taking care of things out here, I'll get busy in town. Come on.
cattle kept moving along slowly but steadily. We were making better time than Red and I had thought possible.
Everything's all set. Steve and Jack's men will hit him from the other side and from the front. We'll hit him from here.
Not expecting anything like this, we were caught flat-footed. There was no chance of stopping the stampede or catching any of those responsible for it. The cattle would have to run themselves out, and the hard work of rounding them up would have to be done all over again. Doherty and the cattlemen would have to be told, so Red and I decided to have a talk with the boys, then go back to Little Rock. We'd stopped at Gale's ranch on our way back to Little Rock and found we weren't the only ones with bad news. Gale's foreman told us Doherty had been shot by an unknown assailant the day after the drive started, that he was alive but in critical condition. To make matters worse, word had gotten around that he had tried to take his own life, that the bank was in bad shape and about to fail. This started a run on the bank, and Pat had sent for Gale and Walton. Red and I didn't want to miss that meeting.
Patty, I'm convinced that the shooting of your father, the stampeding of the cattle, and the run on this bank all happening within days of each other isn't just coincidence. It was planned.
But why?
That we have to find out.
If the run goes on tomorrow, we won't have enough cash to carry us through the day.
Wait a minute. Tomorrow's Saturday. You'll only be open 2 hours, from 10 to 12.
I know that, but I still don't think we can do it.
That'd have given us the whole weekend to try to get to the bottom of what's going on here.
Has Dad used the money he put in my account in the Colfax Bank?
No, he wouldn't touch that under any circumstances.
Then we won't tell him. Hoppy, when Dad sold his mining claims, he put $10,000 in the Colfax Bank for me. I'll telegraph the bank to put it on the next stage.
Well, that'll be Monday afternoon. Today's stage is already left.
If I used that old trail through the mountains, I might be able to get to Colfax and back before the bank opens tomorrow.
Hoppy, if you only could.
Telegraph the bank and tell them to have that money ready no matter what time I get there.
You do it.
Right. We'll bring in as much money as we can scrape up tonight.
Fine.
The money had been waiting for me in Colfax, and by mid-morning I was well on my way back to Little Rock. Another hour or so and I'd be there. I was caught right in the middle. How many more men were waiting for me along the trail, I had no way of telling. My best bet seemed to head for rough country. I decided not to take any chances of the money falling into wrong hands. If luck was with me, I could pick it up later.
Hoppy's in trouble.
Failure to get the bank's money away from me gave me an idea. I believed if I played my cards right, I'd get to the bottom of things. It was going to be tricky, but I felt I could handle it.
I'm glad you're all right. I was afraid of something like this. That's why we rode out.
We didn't get here any too soon.
Yeah, a few minutes later, them hold-up men had the money.
Hold-up men? Money? What are you talking about, mister?
Mister? What do you mean calling me mister? You know I'm Red Connors. Now listen, Hoppy.
What did you call me?
Now look, I'm getting mad.
Hoppy's short for Hopalong Cassidy.
Hoppy? Hopalong, I never heard of him.
Now listen, we haven't got time for this foolishness. We got to get into Little Rock with this $10,000 you brought from Colfax.
$10,000? Colfax?
Well, we caught up with you before the men who were chasing you did, so you must still have it.
Well, I haven't got it on me. Say, maybe you've got me mistaken for somebody else. I don't know.
Now listen, Hoppy, this has gone far enough. If you ain't Hopalong Cassidy, who are you?
Well, I don't know.
He must have fallen from his horse and knocked his memory loose.
Yeah, he must have.
How about backtracking?
That's no use in country as rough as this.
Our only hope's to get him into town and see if Doc Weatherby can do something to get his memory back. Come on.
That's right.
All right, boys, you better get him inside real quick. Better go over at the bank. I'll be right back.
Red was worried about the situation at the bank. I was too, but I figured he'd work things out there. Besides, I had to go through with what I'd started.
495, 96, 97. Sign this, please. One moment, please. Please check this to see if the amount's correct. There's enough cash left to pay it.
Quit stalling. I want my money.
I'll have to ask them to wait until Monday morning.
Melt the place down.
Well, maybe not.
Where do you think you're going?
I gotta see Miss Doherty.
Not a chance. Look at that clock on the wall.
1 minute till closing time.
Get back to the end of the line. This bank ain't closing as long as I'm standing on my feet.
Maybe you ain't gonna be on your feet in about a minute.
Yeah!
15 seconds before 12 o'clock.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
The bank will be open Monday morning as usual. Those of you who still want your money will be paid. You
got some coffee? I could sure use some.
We all could. Bring in some lunch, too, will you? We're going to be working all afternoon.
Right.
The medical term for loss of memory is amnesia. It isn't dangerous, but I don't believe there's any known cure.
Well, maybe the doctors don't have any cure for it. But I heard that if you...
Hoppy's coming over here.
There was no excitement outside the bank. This was a good sign, but I knew Pat, not being aware that I had faked the loss of memory, must be dreading having to face an angry bunch of people on Monday morning. Pat was angry. She didn't mince words, bawling Red out. He defended himself, saying he'd heard that another blow on the head might bring back my memory. Finally, they both ran out of breath. This gave me a chance to tell them that I hadn't lost my memory and that the money was safely hidden. Then I went on and pointed out that only 4 men knew about me going after the money: the cashier, the telegrapher, and the 2 who were with Red. One of them must have planned the attack on me. Red agreed, but Pat was doubtful. She insisted they were all friends of her father. They wouldn't harm him. I hoped she was right, but I was almost sure she wasn't. There was only one way to find out. I put that up to her. Pat listened carefully. She questioned me a couple of times. I answered to her satisfaction, and she agreed to spread word in strict confidence to each of the 4 men that I had recovered my memory and was going after the money. I didn't leave town until after Pat had spoken to the 4 men and emphasized to each that he was the only one she was telling. I spotted somebody trailing me. I didn't try to see who it was. I stopped and pretended to be looking for a certain spot to give whoever was following me time to close in. Cold chills were running up and down my spine. Even with the precautions I'd taken, I knew there was a chance a slug had ripped right into my back any minute. Earlier, Red had staked himself out near where I was to pretend to look for the money. Lucky for me, he'd been right on the job. We immediately recognized Buckley as one of Walton's men. Walton had sent him to watch me and make certain I didn't run off with the money. He was lying, and we knew it. There was no doubt in our minds that Walton was the man we were after. So we decided to take Buckley back to town and try to figure some way of proving it. I handed the money to Pat and told Red to check and see if Walton was in his office. Then I told Buckley to act as though the money was in the saddlebags.
Getting worried. Thought I made a mistake letting you go alone after that money from Cassidy.
You did make a mistake. One you'll be a long time paying for.
What happened?
I never saw you move so fast. Thanks. Come on, get on your feet. Come on. Let's go.
It's remarkable how the folks in Little Rock came to Dad's assistance as soon as they found out what had been going on. More money's pouring into the bank than ever before.
Your dad sure had a lot of trust in them cattlemen.
Red, if more men had the faith in people that he has, this world would be a much nicer place to live in.
Yes, it would.
Say, when he gets well enough to travel, why don't you bring him over to Twin Rivers? Bar 20 is a nice, peaceful place.
I'll do that. As a matter of fact, we'll probably be waiting for you when you arrive with the cattle.
Cattle? That sounds like a gentle hint for us to go to work.
Sure does.
We'll see you at Twin Rivers. Hi there, my little friends. Have you been washing your face and hands good lately? How about your ears? They look pretty good. Don't forget that soap and water not only keeps you nice and clean, but it also protects your health. So use lots of it, won't you? I'll see you next week.
On his way down the moonlit trail to where cowboys range. Hopalong Cassidy, Hopalong Cassidy, he'll return soon again. There's no use to say goodbye until then. Hopalong